Adriane Tyler-Morris. Now, if you were to hear about how she started school in the beginning to become a dietitian to where she is today, you would question, how in the world did she get here? But that's exactly the reason why I have her on. Because we're talking about detours and how just because it doesn't look like what we planned, God plans always work out perfectly. So Adriane Tyler-Morris,
hello.
So happy to have you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes. So let's just think back to the Lamar days.
Absolutely. Okay.
Many years ago, where we attended Lamar together.
Yes.
You were going to school for family and consumer science.
Yes, I was. I wanted to be a dietitian. I had a love for, teaching people about nutrition and, how to eat. And I always thought, well, you know what, I can be like dietitian to the stars, help them as well.
A detour happened. Thanks, Cree, for interrupting. All right, we're going back to the program.
It got plated because, well, let's just say a detour happened. Okay? And while I was at Lamar, I was having one of those moments of, am I really where I'm supposed to be? Basically, I'm going to say, like, I went to church, and I started growing closer to God. And as I grew closer to Him, I was like, wait, this isn't my path. I mean, I like to eat right. I want to teach people how to eat right, but that's not quite my path. And I felt the need to move. So, I had that epiphany, and I was like, I feel like God is telling me to move. I didn't share this with my family or my friends. And I made that really big leap of faith and moved. And I moved to Houston. And my move here was for a new start, a different path, and to just kind of go with the flow. And He put me right back in school.
Now listen, this is the part that I love, because when you feel the urge to move, you feel the urge that there's something has to be different. I need to be doing something differently. And sometimes it requires a physical move. And that's what happened for you. And with that physical move, He also moved you in a different direction for your career. So let's talk about that.
All right, so I get here and I wanted to transfer my stuff from Lamar, but God was saying start over. And I thought, that's a lot of hours, What do you mean start over? Start over. And at that time I thought, what do I have to lose by starting over? Because starting over meant that, I can do things differently. I can do things more perspective of where He wants me to go and not what I'm thinking about. So I started over, and literally it was an acceleration because I did not transfer any of my credits. I literally started over and made it through to my bachelor's of business administration in about 3.5 years.
Wow.
And that's from starting over. But in that process, I began to see things about myself, about my kids, about my life that was, saying, what, the way you used to do things, it's not going to work. You need to do things the way God wants you to do them. And a lot of times we get stuck in that, and I had to get out of my comfort zone and move in things that were uncomfortable. And every time I moved in something that was uncomfortable, God was there.
Yeah.
Not to make it comfortable, but to help me see it through to the next level. And I graduated from SAM with my bachelor's, as you remember, and I got a job offer, like literally right away, which wasn't really normal for that time frame. But I got a job at an engineering company, and they sent me in the middle of a project to start working on contracts. I thought, I didn't really cover this much in school, but okay. But I got to learn the ways of business. I got to see how corporations, ran their business from the inside out, and that was exciting. But I also got to see what they did in their communities, and by being in the area that I was in the engineering group, I was able to see how much outreach they did. Like the mentoring of the Boys and Girls Club, they did junior achievement. And I thought, wait, I don't have to just make money in corporate life, but I can also give back to those that are coming up. So I was happy in that spot. You know, it's like, okay, I'm making my money, but I'm also, you know, helping other people get to where they need to go. And that worked for a while. And then
that worked for a while.
Yeah. For a while. And then I got to this job, and I kept finding myself in legal areas, I should say. I kept getting jobs in the legal industry, so I was like, well, might as well get my paralegal certificate. I mean, I'm negotiating contracts, why not? So I did that, and sometime about the year 2013, I'm working for this really huge oil and gas company. It's like #2, right? And I'm working for them, and I have a good team of people around me, and someone mentioned CASA. And I was like, what is CASA? You know, that was the first time I heard of it. I heard of everything else except CASA. And it was from an ExxonMobil attorney who dedicates her time to helping children that were going through foster care. And not only just helping them, but helping them with placement, helping them with getting the things that they needed to grow or even to get adopted. And I thought, you have time for all that? And I found out your job makes time for that. They will give you time to do that.
They will give you those hours in order to.
And I thought, oh, this is even better. So I was like, I'm going to join CASA. Well, it wasn't that easy. But I thought, you know, gotta make a way if that's the case. And I kind of shelved it for a minute because, you know, I had other things going on in my personal life that needed to be done. So, you know, I was a kid graduating high school, you know, just a host of things. And as I'm going through that, I'm beginning to see that there may be another detour coming up. And I'm in the middle of a master's program around 2015 and early 2014. I get into a master's program for energy law because I'm thinking, I work in the industry, why not? Me and these degrees, why not? So I get this degree, and in the middle of it, it tanks. The whole industry tanks.
That's a real detour right there.
Yeah, because am I gonna have a job?
Right.
Am I going to? What's gonna happen? Like I didn't foresee this, but I always believe that God always sees the end of a thing prior to what we can see. And my boss at the time was a chief financial officer, and I learned so much with finance from him that I thought, wow, it kind of regurgitated things that I learned, you know, from Sam. I was like, oh, I'm finally putting that degree to use. But I also saw my boss as someone who was very mentoring, very encouraging, and even though, you know, he was losing his job himself, he still found the time to make an investment in me. So I always said that I want to invest what I know into someone else if possible. And before I left, they offered me a package, a really nice one. And I thought I'll finish my energy law degree and then, you know, see where it goes. Well, I'd always been told I'd be a good teacher along the way. And I thought, I don't know, you know, because you hear so many things about teaching.
Yeah, like I like my children, but I don't know if I like
Other people's kids.
Yes.
Yeah. And my husband, I said, you know, why don't you try, you know, since you're at home now, why don't you try subbing? And I was like, But I thought, okay, I'll give it a try because, you know, what's the worst can happen? I can just say no, I don't have to go back. I get in there and I'm like, I had kids asking me to become their teacher. And I'm thinking, I'm just a sub. They're asking me to become their teacher. And I'm like, I'm not certified for teaching. Oh my God. So it kind of started there, subbing for the district and just learning these kids and seeing the need. And before I even can get into that, CASA gave me a call. I put my information out there and I got a call. And I was like, ooh, I can be a CASA person. So I joined CASA. I went through the process, the training, and I did that while subbing. And I thought, this is awesome. I get to help people transition from foster care to either extended foster care or just so many things. I start growing closer to my kids that were in the program. And they were all high schoolers.
That were a part of the CASA program.
Yes.
And let's explain really quickly what CASA is for those that don't know.
Okay, CASA is a court Advocate. So they are a court advocate for children. Well, court assisted special advocate, which means that you go into the courtroom and you report to a judge. You get sworn in and everything, but you report to a judge about the conditions that your child lives in, the things that your child does in school, what is their medical history, are there any next of kin that would be more suitable? If not, who do you think is suitable? Have you been able to do what they call
So like an assessment?
yeah, it's another word for that. It's like a home thing, like a home study.
Like a home study, okay.
On families that would be great for this child if they needed it. So I got really involved in that, and I was very proud of one of my cases where she ended up getting placed a fictive kin, which means that they were like a friend of the family, not actually biologically related to her, but they've known her most of her life, and it just happened to work out where she was in like the best situation. She's currently in college.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've also tutored her. I still keep in contact, and it was just wonderful to see someone come out of a really bad situation
To now thriving.
and you still get to have a relationship with that person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love that. And I wanted you to share more about CASA because there may be someone watching who says, okay, but I think I need to check out that organization. So that's the reason why.
So
now,
CASA.org.
CASA.org.
Yeah.
Yes. So now as we reflect back on you saying, okay, it was another detour. Your daughter was graduating from high school. And then the industry that you were in went through a major tank. And it's like, okay, so now what do I do?
Yeah.
And so your husband gave the suggestion of subbing just because you were at home. He was like, you never know if you like it or not. And then you get there to sub, and they are asking you to become their teacher.
And so is the admin. So they were like, can you be a permanent sub? And I was thinking, I don't know, because that means I got to be here every day, right? And yeah, and I was thinking, it's a different life for me. So I was like, okay, I'm used to making my own schedule, and now I'm having to, form this scheduled routine, and it just, I don't know, it started to become easy. And as I noticed kids coming in and building the relationships with them, I realized this is where I need to be. So I was like, okay, if you want me to do this, God, I need to get my certification, and here I am with the school stuff again. And God said, no problem. Gotcha.
School stuff again.
Yeah. So I was like, but God, it's like $5,000. I don't want to spend $5,000. I got you. And sure enough, he got me. I was actually gifted that alternative certification program, and I was like, okay, this is definitely the call up to go and do it. So I finished that program in about 4 months. I got hired before I even finished the program, literally. I took my content exam, and then I was hired on at a school that I've been subbing for.
Wow.
And they were so excited when they found out that I had taken the content for business and finance. And I thought, well, why not teach something I'm familiar with?
Right.
And plus I already had the degrees to back me up for that content. So I got hired, and I've been doing that ever since, and it's been a wonderful journey.
Yes.
Wonderful journey.
And a part of that detour, you also went back to school.
So, I hear about people in education, especially teachers, that really want, once they get into it, they want to I want to change, things about the way the district is run. I want to change things for kids. And for me, it was curriculum. And I was like, I want the credentials to go and write curriculum. So the door opened from a suggestion at the school one day, and I was like, and they said, well, we give a scholarship if you want to go back and get your master's through Concordia. So I was like, really? Okay, well, we can do that. So I fast-tracked it. I did it in 10 months. And
a whole education for your master's in education.
Yes.
In 10 months.
Now, normally you don't do that in 10 months. So imagine, my life was really different. But my husband did it at the same time with me. So it was like, okay, we can do this. But we didn't realize how grueling it would be, because you condense 2 years
right in 10 months
into 10 months, and that I would say probably was the most challenging, but at the same time, I learned so much. And, especially with my time, believe it or not, I learned how to
manage time more effectively.
Even more so. And once we got to the finish line, I was like, it was like a baby that I delivered. And it was like, okay, what do I do now? And like, now you're here. And that's how it felt when I finally got that degree last year. And I'm like, this is awesome. So what do I do now?
Ooh, that was good. But before we continue the conversation, be sure to like this video. And don't forget to subscribe. I want you to get all of the notifications every time a new video posts. So subscribe. Now let's go back to our regularly scheduled program.
When I go into curriculum and I see what they're teaching and I see that something's missing, that whole view. You mean there was no other person other than these people present at that time? Because I'm sure if we looked at, Miguel on this side, Miguel will have a different story to share because his perspective is different. And that's the problem with our curriculum. And like I said, it's very Eurocentric. It needs to change. And I try to incorporate a lot of that in my current study. Like, finance is not just what we're taught, as far as, the color of your skin, the people that are there, that are high up in finance. In other words, there are people that have affected change that are black, brown, and so many other colors that are very ingratiated into finance, but you don't know about them because nobody's ever asked about their perspective and what they bring to the table. There are black business owners that have banks. Okay, multiple. There's a history, there's books and books and books. I wish I could put that in our curriculum, but some of that is like, because of our districts and how they teach things, they're not quite ready for that progressiveness. But I just know that our curriculum needs some changes. We need some changes.
And you're an advocate for change, for sure.
Very much so. Very much so. There's more than European ancestry here in America, and people need to know that there's so many other different perspectives.
And I love that, because when I think about, like you said, when you go to college, then there's this whole shock. So many, they get to college and it's like, school did not prepare me for this.
They couldn't.
Exactly.
Because, they have to go by what would be okay for the general status quo, what doesn't ruffle too many feathers, what's acceptable in those confines. But once you get into college, it's much more liberal. So teachers can come and talk to you without having to ask your parent for permission. Can we talk about the actual battle or the trail of the teacher? Can we actually talk about it? In college, you can discuss it, debate it, write about it, get on a platform and talk about it. But in your primaries, you can't do that because parents are like, well, I want to teach my kid that. I don't want you teaching my kid, certain
But that's
things.
interesting, because there are certain things that are now being taught that as a parent, I wouldn't agree to. But it's in the curriculum.
It's in the curriculum, and a lot of people think that, well, every district has the same curriculum, and that's not the truth. There is no uniform curriculum for all 50 states. Every state determines what your child will learn, and every district within that state determines what your child will learn. So if it goes against, like I said, the status quo, you're going to get some pushback from it. And that's the thing, we need to go against the status quo. We need to incorporate more of that, diverse perspective, so that kids could be more well-rounded in their viewpoint. Just unfortunately, they don't typically get that until they go to college.
But Adriane, I really want to kind of touch base on a couple things. You talked about like maybe 4 or 5 different detours in life, and they're still going to continue because life is not over. What would you say to someone that's watching, especially a mother, because you spoke of, okay, this may not be the right timing. You've moved while your kids were in school. Then you had one of your children that were graduating from high school, so things were changing at that time. But yet, you were open to the detours that were coming, what would you say to someone who may be experiencing the same thing and said, I'm just going to wait until my kids are grown to do, and then fill in the blank?
I love that one where people say, I'm going to wait. That's the problem. They need to see you doing it, because my children see me as a go-getter. They're like, my mom is not going to let anything stop her from pursuing that next level. I wanted them to see me pursuing education. I wanted them to see me at work, but I also wanted them to see the lows, because that's the thing about transparency. People believe you more when you're transparent about the struggle and not just the joys, because they both come hand in hand. I can't say I've gone through all of this and it's just been, oh, wonderful. That is not the case. There's some days when I'm like, I can't get out the bed because I'm too depressed about life, but there's more joy days than there were the struggle days. But I also let my children see that. Like, moving my kids from one city to another, I have no regrets about that ever. I think that was one of the best things I did for them. And they got to see life just as I did. They got to grow with me just as I did. And they're the better for it, And I see that, people say, I want to wait till my kid does this. It's your dream affects, or your passion affects the people that live with you. Right. So if you are not pursuing something, I didn't neglect my kids, and say, well, you know what, I got to study, I got time for you. That's not the way. I'm just saying that they need to be able to see you working at something, so they understand that sometimes it's sacrifice, but sometimes this is what I need to do to learn from you. My oldest is a college graduate, but if you go back and you look at her path, you're like, well, she's seen what her mother is going through. So it encouraged her when she had a down moment, like, it's not for that work. You know what I mean? And she made some changes. She went from, I'm going to study psychology, and now she's a chem major. And by the way, she's now employed with the same district that I'm in. So I look at things from a perspective that they're going to learn from you. Okay? So don't be afraid to fall. I want them to see me fall, because that's a part of life.
That's a part of life. I love that you said that it's a part of life. Falling is a part of life. If we could do it all perfectly and everything always go well, there would be no need for us to even depend on a higher power, or have a desire for more. Why would we? It's working out exactly as I say it should. So I love it, and I love that you said, it's so important that we don't shield our children from not just our highs, but also our lows, for them to see the transparency along the journey. I think that that's a really great point too, because I too hear a lot of people say, well, soon as such and such get out of school, or as soon as, or I can't wait until, and why wait? Why wait?
Now, there are some things that you might put on hold temporarily. Maybe I'm not going to travel to Europe the last year of my child's senior year.
Right.
Okay.
That makes sense. Yes.
That's why I might put that on hold for a moment, because I want her to experience her last year as a high school student. But at the same time, there are many times that God will push you to do something, and you think it's all about you when it's not, because there are people that are watching you, and those little eyes, are learning from you, and I want them to learn the best there is in life, and also the struggles you're gonna have, because I'm not guaranteed to always be here, and you need to know that if you fall, you can get back up.
The path that I am on affects those that are around me. That's what she said. That was so perfectly stated, Adriane. Really. Because me knowing you personally, me knowing your children, I can see how your path has affected them for the better. Being able to see you grow, go through school, changing careers, taking the detours and still making lemonade out of it, like being able to see that and see how well-rounded and how completely educated, and understanding this is a part of life kind of, thing has done for your kids. So that part, you said, the path that I am on affects those that are around me too. Like, I am going to truly treasure that. That was really, really great. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So as we come to a close, I love that you gave that piece of advice to those moms that would say, I'm just going to wait. What piece of advice would you give to those that are maybe on a detour right now and they're like, it just doesn't look like the sunny day is coming and I don't know if I want to take this detour?
When you feel like you've already been detoured, the perspective is he knows my end. Okay, I'm in the middle of this. He knows my end. I take life day at a time, not 3 weeks at a time, not a month at a time, not even a couple of years. One day at a time. So that one day that I'm feeling like this can't be what you have for me. This can't possibly be your will for me. And then I realize it keeps me humble.
Yeah.
And I can say, you know what, not my will, but your will be done. And I'm willing to sacrifice that and lay it out. I go to the altar often. So put that on the altar. That struggle of I don't think I'm where I'm supposed to be, put it on the altar. If it's meant to be burned up, God is going to burn it up and move you on. But if not, He's going to give you strength to keep on with that journey. And one day at a time. One day at a time. Try not to live in advance of that because that's all we get is one day at a time.
Yeah.
And like I say, just take a step back and say, you know what? He got this. I gotta walk through it. So
I love that. This was good. Y'all, I told y'all she was gonna be good. The queen of detours, and y'all see she's still living greatness. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much, Adriane. I really appreciate your time. Yeah. It was completely phenomenal, and I cannot wait to see what the next detour is because it's just begun.
It's coming.
It's just begun. Awesome.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we are diving into owning your identity with Antoinette Staples. Take a look at the sneak peek.
I think that when I look at my girlfriends, I often hear the idea of comparison come up. Now, me going back to when I was a child, me and my sister dealt with comparison, but adult women still deal with comparison and competition and thinking that just because someone else is in a specific industry or someone else is doing something similar that you want to do in business, that means that you can't do it.